Okay, here we go. So we're going to look at lowering your stress and automating it or IT. That's the plan. So some of you might assume that this session is going to cover automations. That's the major innovation that dropped into FME last year, and it's seen some serious improvements this year. So that is certainly a noteworthy feature, but Safe have more than done it justice actually in their recent sessions. Automations are a way in FME Server and FME Cloud of creating event-driven data transformations and stringing processes together. And the interface is a little bit like having Workbench inside FME Server. So if you want to find out a little bit more about automations, just go to Safe's recent automation webinar and jump to 20 minutes in, and you'll find out what's new. And you know, the main focus is that the additional capability of effectively now being able to pass information between automation steps with the new automations writer. But that webinar is a really good session that allows you to see some of those capabilities. Where I do want to devote a little bit of time is sort of a bit of a ramp really to something towards the end. For the ramp, I'm going to use these two apps to give you a bit of an overview of some of the mobile-based automations that you can do. And I'm going to dig into a little bit of depth in these. You can go and get right now in both app stores, so you can go to iOS or Android, depending on your flavor of choice. Go and get the FME Data Express or the FME AR app. Those are available, as I say, right now, so you can go and download them. Over on the screen here, you should be able to see a little bit of a movie example. It might be a little bit jerky across the GoToWebinar interface, but you can see that effectively someone's standing on the roof of a building, and you can see way markers with place names on them. This is a phone view, augmented reality view. The difference is that what you've got now is the ability to stand inside the model. So FME has had this app. This app has existed for a little while. You in FME Desktop can work with a format called the FME AR format. And you can now produce them, and then rather than just dropping them into the app and effectively opening them up and throwing the building or the structure or whatever it is onto the table in front of you and spinning it around, whilst that's cool, actually being able to scale it to one-to-one and have geolocation and be able to express features that are negative elevation as well as positive means that use cases are starting to open up to start to look for things like buried assets and seeing those in place. I touched on or mentioned Dimitri Barg earlier on. His Twitter feed is worth going and having a look at because he tends to do some sort of bleeding edge scenarios. And one that he put up, I think literally yesterday, is him showing pipes under the ground in this app in the right place. So worth going to have a look at. I'll drop his Twitter handle at the end of the event later on. The FME Data Express app is something I also want to show you. I mean, effectively, it's a way of launching FME workspaces directly from your phone. You know, we've got options in here to allow you, ultimately, you'll be able to add in a location selector. You'll be able to see you know, scan QR codes and start to use components of your device to take photos and that sort of thing. So these are all things that'll be added in at some point in the future. But being able to launch a workspace from your device is super handy, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that now. You can see this is my phone on the right hand side. I've got the two apps. I can go and dive in and browse my way around and find the different repositories, and I can pin apps to it. I can go in and find any of the settings that I can access in my app as well. But ultimately, what you're going to want to do is go and run a workspace. So this is the Earthquake Extrusion workspace. It's standard workspace that comes with FME Server when you deploy it. And in this case, I'm running a workspace that connects to the USGS's live feed of earthquakes. These are earthquakes over 2.5 on the Richter scale in the last 7 days. What's happened is that it ran the job and then it streamed back a Google KMZ file directly onto my device as a response. From that web service, FME processed it, turned it into a KMZ, streamed the KMZ into Google Earth, which I've got installed on my phone, and then I can go and browse my way around the earthquakes. That's a 6.3, I think, that happened in Papua New Guinea recently. So there's a whole bunch of different options you can have here. That's a streaming example. This is another streaming example with the Northern Irish Passenger Transport Organisation, TransLink. It's just effectively I guess a sort of a semi non-spatial process. I'm picking train stations from a list, hitting the TransLink API, and then parsing the response into a simple report. If I spin my phone around, you can see that this is just giving me back in the days when we all used to commute to work, this is a little list of the next trains that I would get to go between those 2 stations. So this will give me back the next 10 trains, and I can make a choice of whether I'm going to run for one or wait for the next one. If I go to a different location, in this case, I'll get a different report and a different response, and it's going to the live transport information. It's giving me platform changes. It's giving me anything to do with delays in here as well, and time slots that I can go to. So, I mean, I've created a very unique little personal commuting tool running on this instance of FME Server, but it's a bit of fun to allow you to get your head around how you can use FME to bring back a response. So there's all sorts of things. If you don't have a developer to hand, these things are designed so that you are effectively, you don't have a developer, you want to build an app really fast. You want to make it available to a number of users. You can do that within your organization. You can do that externally if you've got FME Cloud, or you open that up to the other users within your organization. The way this has been made simpler is that there are now things like we've got a new geometry picker in the FME Server app. This allows you to create a point, a box, a line, a polygon, all thanks to a parameter that exists in FME Desktop now. If you go to that URL link at the bottom there, bit.ly/FME App Geom, FME App GEOM. That's basically a Knowledge Center article that'll explain exactly how to do this. You need to add a special parameter in there and then pull it back with a special transformer. I'm going to show you a little bit of that now, just so you can see that. But you can also go into your app that you've built, and you can now secure it. We weren't able to do that in the first iteration. The funny thing is that the demand was, please give me the ability to generate very simple apps styled for my business, but I want them to be open to anybody. As soon as people had got access to that, the next demand was, please can we now have the ability to sign into them. So there's also a run immediately button, which I'll show you in a moment, but we're going to go and have a look at what makes this possible in desktop just to begin with. So I'm going to go and get Workbench, and I'm going to go and get a workspace called the 1Spatial Business Finder. Sounds grand, isn't really. It's a workspace that's got a creator at the front, and some of you probably know that workspaces have to have a trigger feature. One feature must enter the workspace. This creates that feature, and it goes to a transformer called the geometry replacer. This is where the magic step comes in, basically, because the parameter I'll show you in a second creates the geometry that you're passing in, that your user is passing in via the app in GeoJSON, and I'm fetching it with this geom parameter. So I'll go to my publish parameters, go and edit the definition of this one. You can see that basically there's a pick list of different types of parameter. This is a geometry type. And importantly, I've got a setting in here that allows me to pick the type of geometry I want the user to be allowed to pick. And I've got a specific bounds that covers the extents of the UK, so that they're not zoomed to the world to go on use this. And then once I pass into here basically a null geometry that's got the geometry in an attribute. Then I render the geometry from the GeoJSON, add a coordinate system to the data, and I pass it into a custom transformer called the Google Places connector, which hits that Places API that I touched on in that first session. And then I use another custom transformer that a few of you might have spotted, and if you haven't, I would encourage you to go and look at it. It's darn useful. It is called the No Features Tester, which does sort of what it says. Basically, if the results of hitting this API turns up no response, I will get 0 features coming out of this link. And if that happens, this feature, this transformer, creates one. So then that one feature goes off here, and basically I'm going to render a report that says your request didn't give me a response. Whereas down here, if I do get features, then I'm going to generate a report that shows the response. The HTML reporter transformer has been around for ages. We've done it to a lot of detail in previous webinars. There's the HTML writer. If you want to find out more about that, throw some messages into the Q&A, and we'll sort you out over there. But for now, what I'm going to do is go and show you the results of this. So I'm going to go and find my FME server, and I've got some apps in here somewhere. There we are, server apps. Manage my apps. Go and click into the business finder, and in here you can see that I've sort of pre-built it, and you can see I've got an option to turn authentication on, so I can use FME server authentication directly in here. I've got some parameters. I don't have to make all of them visible on the app, so I can turn some of them off. I click into the geometry type. You see there's my extents. There's the fact that I can only create a single point. I would get the other geometry types included in here. And importantly, a bit hidden, but a few people are starting to spot this. This is a web map tile service, WMTS. You can add your own WMTS into here and have your own customized backdrop into your app. So if you pay for a service from somebody, or you've got your own data that you want to include in there, you can do that. And under the customize option, you can throw in things like logos and colored backgrounds. There's that run immediately option that I alluded to earlier on as well. So you can build your app and have a play around with it. If you want to have a go with this, you can do it right now. So if you go to this URL, it's live, it's accessible, you don't have to sign into it. Go to bit.ly/bizfind, and it should work on a mobile device as well if you want to have a play with that. I'm just going to resize it so that you can see that URL whilst I'm doing this. What type of place do I want to look for? So the Google Places API allows you to find businesses of certain categories. I seem to spend my time in the supermarket at the moment, and that's about it, frankly. So I'm going to look for supermarkets, search your location. Well, I could only dream of traveling somewhere. I'm going to go Cardiff, just for the sake of going to Cardiff virtually. And I'm going to confirm that, and I'm going to go for supermarkets within 10 kilometers of Cardiff and hit go. Hopefully I'll get streamed back a report with all the supermarkets in Cardiff. And you can hover over them and it tells you that I've ended up in Tesco. Other supermarkets are available. Let me click around a few more just to be impartial. There's a list of the supermarkets with a few details and URLs to get to them. They're sorted by ratings, but it's ratings as per Google. So, you sort of take it all with a pinch of salt. But anyway, there's an example that you can go and have a go with. That will be live for a little while, so go and have a go with that app. And on that note, thank you very much. That's our Automate webinar that's at the end of the year. Sign up for it now. Then you don't need to worry about it. You'll get a message in your inbox to let you know when it's going to start.